Today we look at the position 5 role and do a little tier list. We take a look at which heroes are the best, which heroes are sort of average, which heroes should only be played situationally, and which heroes you should avoid. So let's start with the S tier. These are the heroes that are really overpowered, the super strong heroes that you can always pick without feeling bad about them. And these are Ancient Apparition and Winter Wyvern. They both kind of fill similar roles in that they are reasonably strong laners that offer a lot of sustained damage. They're good at harassing in lane, but they're not that good at killing in lane. The exception is sort of AA. If you combine him with a hero that has a strong stun, then maybe you can get a cold fill stun off and get a lot of damage that way, but most of the time as AA, you're not really going to have much kill potential in lane. Another feature these heroes have in common, aside from both being ice themed, is that they're kind of counter heroes. AA is a counter to heroes with a lot of regen and heal, and Winter Wyvern is a counter to heroes that rely on illusions and summons. But these heroes currently are so strong that you're perfectly fine just first picking them. If you're picking these heroes in the first phase, you're not really getting the most use out of that counter aspect, but you at least narrow down your opponent's options. So for example, if you happen to be in a game with a Husker spammer and you pick AA in the first phase, well, he's probably not going to pick Husker into that, but at least that means that now you're forcing him to playing a hero that he's less familiar with. Same if you're Winter Wyvern, if you pick Winter Wyvern and you're playing against someone who likes to pick Meepo, he's not going to be able to pick Meepo, or if he does, he's going to be at a significant disadvantage. Next, we'll move on to the A tier. Here I'll include 3 heroes together. These are all beefy boys that are strong at laning: Treant Protector, Ogre Magi, and Jakiro. They're all fairly straightforward. Treant Protector may be the least straightforward of these 3, but still not that hard to play. You can pick them up at any level. They're very strong at lower levels, but they're currently good enough that perfectly viable to play these at any level. So these are especially heroes I would recommend if you're new to the game or new to the support role. These heroes are quite straightforward and you can have good results. Then we have Warlock, who is an okay laner, similar to those 2 in S tier. He has good sustain and harassment capabilities in lane, but no real disable, so this doesn't offer a lot of kill potential at the start, so it's best to pair him with a more passive kind of carry. But he makes up for it by having amazing team fight, so as long as you play around his ultimate, you're gonna have a good time. One thing to note about Warlock is that if you pick him, you want to pair him up with a more active position 4 that can make plays, that has a low cooldown stun, so you don't have 2 heroes in the support role that are only focused on team fighting. Then we have Hoodwink, who's pretty much the polar opposite of Warlock. He's very good at pickoffs. He has low cooldown stun, a lot of disable there, does a lot of single target damage, but doesn't offer the best team fight. He's more commonly played as a 4, but it also works perfectly fine as a 5. But if you pick it as a 5, you will probably want to have a 4 that's a bit more team fight heavy. Lion is another one of those heroes that is very good at single target pickoffs, and also a hero that can be played as either a 4 or a 5, works really well in both those roles. His win is not spectacular, but he's being picked very, very much. I think he's the 2nd most picked hero overall in the last month. So even though his winner is only average, I'm putting him here in A tier. And he's a decent-ish laner. Not the greatest, but Earthbag is a very low mana cost, so it's quite spammable. And of course he has great single target pickoff potential. And all this disable makes him a very potent hero even in the later stages of the game. And also there's the fact that he deals very well with illusions that make him a potent pick in the current meta. Continuing our theme with heroes that can be played as 4 or 5, we have Dark Willow, who has some single target pickoff as well as some nice teamfight contributions. So she's kind of a jack of all trades. She's just a very solid hero, no particular weaknesses this hero has, but also no glaring strengths. And we have Bane, who's all about the single target pickoff. He's one of the best laners, and He's just the kind of hero you want to just lock down a single target, and as a result, you probably want to have a position 4 that has a bit more teamfight potential. Dawnbreaker works perfectly fine as a 5. You can also play as an offlaner, which is probably the most popular role, or as a position 4. He's a very solid kind of hero, good at brawling, decent amount of damage, some heal as well, and of course a lot of mobility. Then we have Abba, who's a very defensive support, but just have a position 5 that can save your carry with a strong dispel on a very low cooldown. That's incredibly valuable, and then you can heal your allies up with a miscall. And the great thing about Abba is that even if you have no farm at all, you're still quite durable, you're still hard to kill, which is not something that most supports can say of themselves. Usually if they have a saving support, your opponent's team will want to go on you first. You play something like a Dazzle or a Shadow Shaman or an Omni Knight or something like that as +5. You're always vulnerable to being jumped and killed, but with Abba that doesn't happen, and that is a very potent combination. Downside, of course, is that Abba does not offer a lot of offensive abilities. It's all about the defense with this hero. Snapfire offers a pretty complete package in terms of her abilities. You have some minus armor, you have AoE damage, you have a stun, you have the ultimate that deals a lot of AoE damage from range. So she's just really solid. Can be played in a +5, +4, even as +3, but as +5 I think is probably her strongest role right now. And we have Visage, one of my personal favorites. Not played as much as a 5, but perfectly viable in that role. He's a hero that excels in kill lanes, so you want to put him either into a tri lane or pair him up with a carry that wants to play a high tempo lane, a lane where you go for kills, and not one of those heroes that just want to sort of sit back and farm. So you don't want to pair him with something like a Spectre or a Drow. You want to pair him with something more active like a Sven or a CK, one of those kinds of carries. The reason for that, of course, is the Soul Assumption, which is an incredibly powerful laning spell if there's a lot of fighting in the lane. So this hero has a lot of damage output, doesn't really need a lot of items to have great damage output. Items help a lot, but this hero can do quite a bit with very little. So he's also possible to play as a +5. Generally speaking, as a position 5 player, you want to have a very limited hero pool. For the simple reason that you're usually going to have to pick in the first phase, so you're not really counter-picking anything. So you can just have like one hero that is spamming and then maybe like 2 or 3 other heroes as backup in case that hero gets banned. And that's also the case if, what is very likely, you have to play some +5 when you run out of role queues. So you probably want to just pick one of those heroes from this list from S and A tier and just spam that hero. Really practice that one particular hero. But you know, if you're already quite familiar with one of those heroes from like B tier, just keep playing that hero, that's fine. If it's a C tier hero, maybe you might want to think about picking one hero that's a bit better in the current patch. But if you just want to learn position 5, probably pick up one of those heroes in S or A tier. Now onto the B tier. These are heroes that are fairly balanced, that are neither too strong nor too weak. First, you have Bounty Hunter. Can be played also as a 4 or a 3, but if it's just fine in the position 5 role. Kind of annoying laner, and you're just giving your team a lot of intel in fights. You don't have the most like damage output or disable or anything like that. But thanks to track, you're always going to have a decent item progression. You can build items like Mech or Solar Crest and have a decent impact in teamfights through that. And they just can make a lot of space around the map, scouting enemy positions, placing deep wards and that sort of stuff. Silence is a fairly strong laner, great harass in lane, and of course a great team fight with his ultimate. He's a bit of a one-trick pony. It's mostly just press R and that's your contribution to fights. But, you know, it's a very strong ultimate, so that's good enough out of a position 5 usually. Enigma, very greedy position 5. But he is a decent laner because you can deny those range creeps, and if you do it outside of enemy XP range, you're giving your carry a big experience advantage. And it's also nice to have a position 5 that can farm jungle when he has the space to do so, that can push lanes, and that does a decent amount of tower damage. And of course, an Enigma, even with position 5, can just always turn around a fight with a good black hole. So it's a hero with a very high ceiling. So that's nice to have on a position 5. Dazzle is another one of those defensive supports. A great recent change to him is the new shard, which allows him to just stun people all day long. So Poison Touch now hexes targets for 1.25 seconds on a very low cooldown thanks to the ultimate. So this shard is pretty much a must-have on Dazzle. Of course, it's a plus 5, so it's going to be very easy to afford these shards. Also, Dazzle, a hero that actually wants quite a few items. So that's a bit of a problem. At the same time, he doesn't fit the higher farm priorities all that well. There's usually still a position 5. But that's sort of the problem with Dazzle, that on the one hand, you sort of want to be this expendable plus 5. On the other hand, you also want to have items to make use of that cooldown reduction from the ultimate. If you can get something like a Greaves or a Pipe or something like that, always it's amazing. But as plus 5, it's a bit hard to get there. Dazzle farms decently well, but at the end of the day, is still a position 5. Shadow Demon, sort of situational heroes, a nice counter to certain heroes where creating illusions of them is very strong. So for example, if you're playing as an anti-mage, it's really annoying to have the Shadow Demon illusions draining your own mana. And also works quite well with particular heroes like a Luna, for example, where you can make illusions of her, whether it's an enemy Luna or allied Luna. So in certain games it's very strong, but there's also other games where it's very lackluster, which is why it's only in B tier. Omni Knight, another nice defensive support, offers unfortunately no real offensive capabilities. Unlike Dazzle, who at least has some damage and slow and so on. Omni Knight is pretty much purely defensive, but here's a nice ultimate. Heavenly Grace is a very nice ability, so he's a decent hero. Io, kind of a similar story. He's a hero that buffs up one of your cores by linking to them. Io used to be very, very powerful, but then received a bunch of nerfs, so now it's only in B tier. Venge, interesting hero, offers the nice aura, which unfortunately is not as strong as the aura used to be, but it's still kind of nice for a bunch of heroes to have this damage aura. And you have some single target disable, you have the swap, so you have some tools to play around with, but she's not one of these premier supports. Grimstroke, a nice, well-balanced hero. Nothing particularly spectacular about this hero. Obviously, it's great in combination with strong single target spells. So if you have, let's say, a Doom or a Beastmaster, or any of those other heroes with strong single target abilities, then you can get some nice combinations with the ultimate off. But yeah, it's just a sort of average hero. Then you have Shadow Shaman, who's probably better as a 4, but still decent as a 5. Can still do a decent amount with not that much farm, but you would really like to have like an Ether Lens, you would like to have the Shard, you would maybe like to have a Blink Dagger, BKB, Aghanims. All these items are great, but as a position 5, you're obviously not going to get all of them. That said, even without a huge amount of farm, you still have lots of disable, you still have lots of pushing power, so this is still very solid. Pos 5. Clockwork, kind of unusual pos 5, but it actually works reasonably well as pos 5 even. And as a pos 5, of course, you're a lot more expendable, so if they focus you down, you're not as sad, but even as a pos 5, you're still fairly tanky. Chen, another one of my favorite heroes, obviously. He got some very undeserved nerfs in 728, taking away his ability to recall teammates. Out of the blue, he wasn't even very strong before that. Then they just nerfed him to the ground with that change, and now they gave him some buffs in 729, but he's still not that great. Like he's okay, you can play him. I'm still fine playing him because I'm very experienced with Chen, and he's like one of my favorite heroes, but I wouldn't recommend like someone to pick up Chen right now because he's just still a bit on the weak side. Elder Titan, kind of situational hero, very strong in team fighting, a decent laner, but can be a bit awkward to play as a +5, especially you're not going to get most value out of your natural order aura because as a +5 you're typically too poor to really be in the thick of fights. So you're probably not gonna really make much use of that base armor reduction aura, which is around the hero. It's more about the resistance aura, which is around your spirit. So that's more we're gonna utilize, and of course your spells, Echo Stomp and Earth Splitter. But as I said, still a very powerful team fighter, even as a +5. Lich is a very beginner-friendly hero. If I was making this video primarily based on lower level play, I would rate him a bit higher. You can see at lower levels he's doing pretty okay, pretty decently, but then at higher levels he falls off. That's why he's down here at the bottom of B tier, still okay-ish, but not great. Then there's Crystal Maiden, sort of a similar fate befalls her. She's sort of in the same category as Lich. One of these classic support heroes, but unfortunately right now not that strong. But still, if you're picking up support role, you can still play her. She's fine, and she's fairly straightforward. Oracle got some nerfs. He's no longer that great, so he's in C tier. Gyrocopter, a bit of an unusual +5, but actually works decently well, and that he's a very strong laner. The problem is that he doesn't scale as well as some other +5s. If you're not getting many items, which of course is a +5, you're not going to get. Venomancer probably works better as a +3, or at least a +4. As a +5 is a bit greedy, doesn't offer that much in lane aside from like right-clicking people and poisoning them. That's not really what you want out of your +5. Kotl is a bit overnerfed. Is the current state he doesn't really do quite enough, I think, at least in pop play. This list is more based around pop play than on competitive play. So I wouldn't really recommend Kotl in your pop games. Skywrath Mage, a lot of damage obviously, very strong single target damage. He can be okay, but he's very one-dimensional. I wouldn't recommend too much. Phoenix got a bunch of nerfs. You can still play him if you really like Phoenix, but I would recommend one of its other heroes. If you want to look for a strong team fighter from the position 5 role, I would recommend you look at like one of these ST heroes, or maybe like Treant Protector or Warlock rather than Phoenix. Hecky's used to be a complete rubbish hero, but nowadays he's kind of sort of decent. He got a lot of buffs, but still not that strong. Enchantress, a bit underwhelming right now. She got some buffs in 17.9, but it's not quite enough. Disruptor is kind of awkward state. His laning is not that great. His Thunderstrike is a very strong ability, especially at level 1. So a lot of sustained damage there. But the problem with Disruptor is that he's just so weak if you're losing the game. If you're ahead, Disruptor can do a lot with his glimpse, but if you're behind, Disruptor just kind of feels useless. So if you can just run a Disruptor and his team here doesn't do very much, so that's why he's down here. Rubik, play him as a +4 if you want to play him. Witch Doctor, just very underwhelming, would not recommend. Nature's Prophet feels very meh, especially as a +5 these days, because Treant is so weak at the start. So I wouldn't really recommend this hero as a +5. Undying feels a bit underwhelming right now, especially since a lot of range carries are very strong in this meta, so that makes Undying a bit weaker. Then we get to D tier, the heroes you should avoid. So Death Prophet was a strong meta pick for a while as a +5, but then she got nerfed quite a lot, and so I would not recommend her at all as +5. Windranger, don't play her as a +5. She needs higher farm priority, because like a Windranger with no items just doesn't really do much except like power shots, but that's not good enough. And then Pudge, just don't play this hero. He's just not good. And if you must play him as a 3 or a 4, but don't play him as a 5. Just don't. Just please don't. So what did you think about this list? Are there any heroes that I missed? Any heroes that you would have rated higher or lower? Tell me down below in the comment section. And if you want to see me play some position 5, especially Chen and Visage, come swing by my stream on Sunday. I stream every Wednesday and Sunday. Link is down in the description. And always willing, I'll see you there.